So hi, welcome back to this video. In the last video I looked at the Harry Allan Terrace produced films of Fu Manchu in a box set. Please watch that video if you want to find out more about the Fu Manchu films and you haven't watched them. In this video, which is related, I'm going to look at another character who was created by the British writer Sax Rohmer, and this is the character of Sumuru. And I'm going to be reviewing these two 4K discs of the two Sumuru films. The first one's called, well, it's called on here The Million Eyes of Sumuru. It was, I think, released in Britain just simply as Sumuru. And this is the second film, The Girl from Rio, which I don't think ever got a theatrical release in the UK. So both of these films produced by Harry Allan Terrace, who, as I explained in the video on Fu Manchu, was a kind of fly-by-night character. So Sumuru is in some ways a female version of Fu Manchu. She's a female supervillain who wants to take over the world, wants world domination. And the difference is that she's of indeterminate nationality. So although she's created by Sax Rohmer, her actual appearance in media other than print came before her books. She was originally created for a radio serial for the BBC. The BBC didn't want to offend the Chinese government by having an Oriental character like Fu Manchu. So she was made of sort of indeterminate nationality. So this is a Blu-ray. It's a 4K Blu-ray. I mean, some people would think, why does a pot boiler like this, and it is definitely a pot boiler, deserve to be in 4K? I think in home media in market, we've gone from a position where the very best films like Lawrence of Arabia were all getting put on 4K to a situation where there's a kind of niche market for people who are slightly nerdy or very nerdy, who want to have pristine versions of cult films. And these two films are definitely cult. They're not in this age mainstream market films. Million Eyes of Sumuru is really a kind of it's an adventure film. It's got a lot of action in it. It very much reflects the kind of James Bond, Man from U.N.C.L.E., etc. ethos of the sort of 1960s. So there was all these spy films coming out, and films based on pulpy characters like Modesty Blaise or Bulldog Drummond, etc. And so this is in some ways it's got a kind of strange sensibility. It's directed by Lindsay Shonteff, who's a director that I don't know very much about, although there is a documentary on this disc which I haven't watched, which talks about his movies. But Million Eyes of Sumuru has got this kind of spy film kind of feel to it. This is a new 4K restoration, and it's a fantastic restoration. The colors jump off the screen. There's some fantastic locations in this. Some of it's filmed at the Shaw Brothers Studios in Hong Kong. So there's some, the first scene has got a kind of Chinese setting, and it looks absolutely fabulous. There's a lot of filming in Hong Kong itself, in the city, and that just looks amazing. It's incredible to see all this footage filmed actually in Hong Kong at the time. At times the film doesn't really know what kind of direction it's going in. I mean, we've got George Nader as the star, and he plays a serious character, but he's got a sidekick who's Frankie Avalon, who's a kind of young agent sort of tagging along with him, and it doesn't, they don't quite work out as a pair. You know, I think it would be better if we'd had a kind of Nayland Smith and Petrie type arrangement as we had with the Fu Manchu films. A lot of this is very tongue-in-cheek, a lot of it's played for laughs, but it's quite a good adventure film. There's just looking inside, there's two versions of the film. There's the 4K version. If you have a 4K Blu-ray player, there's the ordinary Blu-ray disc, and there's two audio commentaries from film historians, which are very informative and very interesting. I learned a lot about the films themselves and about Harry Allan Towers, who was the producer. One of the amusing anecdotes is that he always had a man dressed as George Washington. No, not George Washington, I'm talking rubbish. Abraham Lincoln. He always had somebody dressed as Abraham Lincoln on his film sets. And this was because he was filming in different countries where there was sometimes some strong views by the government about censorship. Some of his films were a bit sleazy, and so he would always tell the authorities if they visited that actually he was making a film about the life of Abraham Lincoln. I don't think that illusion would have sustained any kind of scrutiny of looking at the sets for the films, or certainly the actors and their costumes. But that was part of his kind of setup. And this film does look very glossy. It does look pretty good, and there's some little treats in it. For instance, there's Klaus Kinski, who really kind of hams things up, camps things up, chews the scenery. He's not doing his own voice. He's dubbed by someone else. Part of Kinski's shtick was always that if the director of a film wanted him to dub himself later, then he would have to pay him again for his acting. So I think the decision was made to have him dubbed by someone else, but his scenes are quite amusing. He plays someone who is going to be assassinated by Sumuru, but he has a double who actually gets assassinated. It's an entertaining film. It's quite enjoyable. This is an extended version. It says it's got 10 minutes of additional footage which were previously not found. It's from the uncut original camera negative. It's in Dolby Vision and it's in high dynamic range. So it would have been nice to have seen some of the Fu Manchu films done in 4K, but this one is a visual treat. There's a documentary, as I said, about Lindsay Shonteff, and there's poster and still gallery, theatrical trailer. There's what's called a riff tracks, which is where they have kind of humorous comedy discussion over the soundtrack. I didn't watch that. It doesn't interest me particularly. This second film, The Girl from Rio, again stars Shirley Eaton as Sumuru, although during the film her character gets a different name and she has a different name again in the end titles. So there was a bit of a I don't know what was going on then. Certainly she was called Sumuru in all the foreign language versions. This film was released with different titles in different territories, and some of the titles didn't really make a lot of sense at all. The film itself, this is Jesse Franco again, so a lot of this film is completely incoherent in terms of plot. And I don't think Franco is a good action director at all. So there'll be scenes where there's Sumuru's army of women are firing machine guns, and it doesn't really look as if anything's getting fired at all. I just think, I know there's Jess Franco's got his fans. I don't find him particularly interesting as a director. What is good about this film is, though, again, the locations. So it's filmed in Rio de Janeiro. The photography is absolutely lush, and it's definitely incredibly, stunningly beautiful in 4K. And also, Jess Franco does he does do some very beautiful photography, I have to say. So the film, especially with the high dynamic color range, it's razor sharp. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I think if you do get this edition, 4K edition, then I would recommend, before you watch the actual film, that you watch one of the extras, which is additional scenes from the German version of the film. So the German version of the film has quite a long sequence at the start of the film, which was cut off from the international or English language version. And I don't know why that footage was cut, because it actually explains what the story's all about, and if you watch that before you watch the film, you'll actually understand the film. So I don't know why that footage is left off, because it explains the plot, really. Otherwise, you're just scratching your head and saying, what's going on here? It doesn't make any sense. So this film is much more of an exploitation film. There's some nudity, there's sort of supposed torture scenes that don't really look very torturing, but they're, they just look strange. It's a sort of 60s psychedelia, really, in this film. And, I think the aspect, you just have to look at it as a kind of very, very odd period piece. Shirley Eaton looks absolutely fantastic in the role, but at times you're not quite sure that she's been, or anybody else has been, properly briefed about what the plot is. And so, she's not really as convincing as she could be if there was a clear idea of what the film was about. And I think this is one of these situations, where the location work can pay off in terms of it looks great, it looks convincing, but films that were like the Face of Fu Manchu, which was filmed in Ireland and in the studio in Ireland, okay, a lot of the sets and everything are more artificial, but because everything's been filmed in the one place, it's and the script's been properly written and prepared, everything's very coherent. Whereas with a film like The Girl from Rio, it feels almost as if a lot of the photography is done for the sake of getting some film in the can, and then they'll try and make sense of it later, rather than them filming things that are essential to the plot. So for instance, there's a lot of footage at the carnival in Rio de Janeiro, which just goes on, and it looks like somebody's cine film that they've shot when they were on holiday, and you're thinking, what's the point of this? I'm just sitting here watching people dancing in the carnival. So it would have been better editing most of that out and putting back in the footage from the German version, which is actually quite action-packed footage and explains the plot. So I don't really understand some of the editing decisions there. In this film, Sumuru is wanting to get her hands on some money. She's based on an island, allegedly, she's called Femina, and it's a sort of all-women island, and this is the place from which she's going to dominate the world, get rid of most of the men, and have a world dominated by women. So there's a kind of sort of weird sort of feminist idea going on in there, but it doesn't really have make a lot of sense to it. There is also a bit of controversy around some scenes involving in relation to Shirley Eaton. she was very determined that her character shouldn't be a lesbian character, you know, although the character comes across a bit like the Pussy Galore character in James Bond. But she was definite that there would be no lesbian scenes. She would be somebody who wanted to conquer men. And in fact, the theme, which is a very nice song, The Girl from Rio, it says, one of the lines is, she plays with mice, sorry, she plays with men like a cat plays with mice. And so she was very convinced the character was heterosexual, but Jess Franco, using a mixture of kind of gauze screens and filming from the back, managed to get a lookalike actor to film, you know, what looked like a kind of lesbian encounter, and Shirley Eaton was very displeased about that. It was actually the last role that she did. She decided that she wanted to spend time with her husband and children, so she didn't make any films after The Girl from Rio. So together these films are sort of a niche market. I bought them because I'm interested in the work of Sax Rohmer, and I don't regret buying them because they have some appeal in their own way. But don't watch them or get them expecting great cinema. Certainly the first film's the better of the two. And so this is my second and last video about the Harry Allan Towers Sax Rohmer adaptations. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you another time.